Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Bitcoin. This bull market has been extremely slow. And what I mean by that is mix of huge move, double and triple, and it just goes sideways for months, as opposed to it just kind of keep going up parabolically non-stop. This cycle so far seems to be a little bit slower. Well, the question is this the top? And also, why is it so slow if this is not the top, right? I happen to think that is not the top, and I'm going to come up with several arguments in terms of why that is. And one argument really is I do think that part of the reason why we're kind of going sideways, consolidating sideways here. If you look at a monthly chart, I'm going to take the weekly. I'm going to put the monthly. You can see that it's been really going sideways ever since March 2024. And one reason why I think that might be, if you look at the Chinese M2 money supply, it also has gone sideways from March all the way to June. And so far, we don't have the data for July or August. But it really do have some Chinese liquidity kind of gone sideways, right? Another reason why I think that we're a little bit too far ahead of ourselves when it comes to the Bitcoin cycle is that the US M2 money supply has nowhere near its previous all-time high quite just yet. You just went through quantitative tightening for about a year and a half to 2 years, and the bottom of the US money supply really was in October 2023. And since October 2023, you really have increase in liquidity in terms of the overall US money supply. And this can also be shown by looking at yields. Yields is basically just telling you how easy it is to get money from, basically from borrowing, right? It also seemed to have topped around October 2023 here for the 2-year, and also have topped in October 2023 here for the 10-year yield, right? So the highest interest rates was really back in October 2023. The lowest US liquidity point was really in October 2023. Well, what happened in October 2023? Well, October 2023 is when the IWM, the small cap, has really bottomed. And October 2023, if I go back to Bitcoin over here, it actually just kind of shot up, right? So I think if anything, Bitcoin has front ran the US liquidity and has front ran the yields going down. And right now, I think we just kind of went triple from like 25,000 all the way to 72,000, 73,000. And right now we're just spending months and months on sideways because we're getting punished for it. The liquidity increase just simply hasn't really caught up to speed, up to pace, if you will, with how fast Bitcoin goes. Now, for those people who are confused about what I'm talking about, this is how Bitcoin works. They keep printing money, and money keeps on going to Bitcoin. Why that is, we don't know, but, well, actually we do know. It's because they have a secure network. It's because there's increasing demand for a hard assets that is also easily transferable. I mean, I can keep going talking about Bitcoin all day, but you're not here to listen to narratives in terms of Bitcoin. You can listen to us, many other better channels for that. But in general, if you have money coming in, if you have easy access to money, if you want to park money somewhere, it generally goes to Bitcoin. But I think it's simply just gotten way too far, way too fast ahead of the liquidity expansion, and we're just getting punished for it in the short term. And we're getting punished for it in the short term in a very, very nice descending broadening wedge. These things generally are leaning, bullish, as opposed to, an ascending wedge. Hey, I'm going to show you on the weekly chart, might be a little bit more clear here. Usually, if something that looks more like a descending wedge or a descending, descending wedge or descending broadening wedge, these things are generally bullish, as opposed to like an ascending wedge, like something like this. That these things are generally like bearish, and just the structure itself is still lean more, more of like a bullish market structure. If you also look at the monthly chart here too, so far there really isn't anything that is broken, because right now here is more or less a macro higher low compared to over here, right? And if you also look at the Bollinger Band, I'm going to put a Bollinger Band here. Every single cycle, when it gets really into beast mode, when things get really going, you have the Bollinger Band expansion that can go all the way up and all the way down, right? When the Bollinger Band expands, the little Bollinger Band expands all the way down to the negatives. And that's when you know that a really nice bull cycle is happening, right? So we really had like maybe like 4 or 5 bull cycles previously, and pretty much each one of these are associated with the Bollinger Band expansion all the way down, you know. But currently we don't really quite have that quite just yet. We have that 2 hump that we generally get during the initial phases of bull market expansion, where you have a little bit of a contraction and another bit of a contraction over here. Over here we have the same thing, right? A little bit of contraction here, a little bit of contraction there before things went up. Over here, same thing, a little bit of contraction here, a little bit of contraction here before the full Bollinger Band expansion, right? Before you have full parabolic bull run, right? We really haven't had that. I mean, you could argue this is quite parabolic. Kind of like here, you can argue this is quite parabolic, and like that's why things are getting punched over here for like a whole year. And this is quite parabolic, and that's why things are getting punished here for about half a year so far, right? But overall, the market structure is still not broken. The 20-month moving average is still nicely pointing up, just like how it was over here, just like how it was over here. There's really nothing that is scary about it so far, based on the higher time frame. Now, the other thing too is that we really haven't had any euphoric sentiment for Bitcoin. This is the Google Trends for Bitcoin, and it really just haven't hit anything that significant. Like, it hasn't really had any kind of higher highs in terms of interest from people, really. So nobody really still care about Bitcoin. Like, your average person don't care. The fact that you're listening to me, I think you're actually one of the more rare ones. Until whenever things get parabolic, and until whales, after they accumulate for about like a year and a half, 2 years, and they want to unload on somebody, that's when they pump the price up, right? When they accumulate for about a whole year, year and a half, when they want to get rid of their Bitcoin, they pump it up and distribute it. And so far, I just have a hard time seeing the price kind of go sideways here for about a year, year and a half for a whale to accumulate, just for them to like, you know, dump here. And you also just, if you also look, like listen to the news, there's a lot of inflow going to Bitcoin ETF. There's a lot of inflow overall going to Bitcoin. You know, the question is, why is that if you have a lot of inflow going to Bitcoin, why is the price keeps dropping over the last 6 months, right? Well, you know, you're always going to have people buying, you're always going to have people selling. You're always going to have traders, you're always going to have volatility. You're also going to always have these like over-the-counter buys that don't really move the price that much. And it's just that whales have their ways to kind of hide themselves, and they're not always apparent. So in terms of what I'm really seeing here, this overall is still a sideways reaccumulation type pattern, almost similar to what it was over here around 2019, you know, before it went up. But it may not last for as long because we've had a correction over here that is also longer than a correction over here, you know. So we will see what happens, but that's also one reason why I don't think Bitcoin has topped yet. If you also take off the Bollinger Band, if you also look at the Ichimoku Cloud, which is one of my favorite indicators, you get this thing called the Tenkan and Kitchen cross, where the blue line crosses above the red line. Whenever this happens in the last previous cycle over here, that's when a parabolic bull trend happens. Whenever the time before that, when you have a bullish cross, is really over here around 2016, and after that you have about like 2 years of bull trend after that. So pretty much every single time when you have like a bullish cross, you really are talking about some pretty parabolic bull trend that lasts for about anywhere from 12 to 18 months, maybe a little bit longer. And so far we had a bullish cross over here. So far we are a little bit scary because things are a little bit underneath the Tenkan. You really like to see Tenkan to service support on the way up, you know, during a bull market. But sometimes you can have, even during a bull market, sometimes you can have like temporary breakdown underneath the blue line, underneath the Tenkan over here. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the bull market is over, right? So this is something that I'm watching, but we just had a bullish cross, which is going to be a tailwind for price to potentially just keep going up higher, right? A couple other things to, one is to look at the RSI. And this is also another way to kind of tell you that things really haven't been that overheated. I don't think we really need to get that punished that with that big giant bear market that kept on going for so long. I don't think that necessarily has to happen during this cycle. Because if you look at overall RSI and how Bitcoin has been trending over the years, really ever since its inception, it's been having this, more or less this RSI trend line over here that has been fitting pretty nicely. It hits enough points for you to feel comfortable about this trend line over here. And every single cycle, when you have a parabolic bull run, it hits the top of the RSI. Now, could this be the exception where you have a muted bull market and this is it, and you go down from here? Possible, but I'm not sure whether or not this is this whole like this time is different kind of narrative, right? I'm just not sure about that. Now, if anything, I think this is maybe similar to this spot over here. This over here may be more similar to like maybe either this spot or this spot over here, which means that you have some further room for run, right? This spot over here may be a little bit more similar to this spot over here, which means you have maybe even more room for it to run, right? So far, based on RSI, like we're following this trend line here very closely. A lot of people are, not just me. And when a lot of people are following it, generally there's some kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy that things might end up happening just because of that. So that's another reason. One more reason is the pi cycle indicator. There's something called the pi cycle, where they had come up with these lines. And these lines are based on moving averages. When the two lines cross and when they touch, generally is where you think that the bull market is topped, right? This was devised in around 2018 after this top. So it used these couple of tops over here used as a part of the calculation to see when the next top would be. And the next top, which was calculated during the last cycle, the last pi cycle top was around like April 2021, which is this top right here. Now, it went on to make another exhausted higher high over here, but the truth is that the true market top was probably around like April 2021. Right now, have we gone anywhere near the pi cycle top? No. If anything, it like delays it a little bit further because of the last couple of months of price action. So we're not near the pi cycle top because there's no touchy of these two lines anywhere near quite just yet. The cycle just seems a little bit slower for some reason based on looking at this, right? But because of that, I don't think we've topped. Another indicator is the MVRVZ score. Whenever you have the MVRVZ hitting close to like 4 or 5, that's when you really need to start worrying about, hey, maybe we're getting close to a cycle top, right? And last cycle over here during the April 2021, it hit around 4 or 5. That might be the actual top. Even though it made a little bit of an exhaustive higher high here, the MVRVC score is never really back up there again, right? So it's very, very exhaustive top over here. Over here, we have made like a score of like less than 3. There's really no indication to think that this has really near its euphoric top or anything like that. Now, you can argue not every single cycle has to have a euphoric top, but if that's the case, then I don't think the downtrend is going to be that punishing, right? Every single time it hits the 0 or negatives, these are good spots to buy, like over here, and like over here, right? So this indicator so far has been working out pretty well. And another thing I also want to say that I don't think that the market has topped is, remember I was saying the last cycle top was around November 2021, but the actual top may be more close to like April, right? Well, if you look at a MicroStrategy chart, MicroStrategy is basically a leverage play for Bitcoin because they just keep on buying Bitcoin on leverage. The last top for MicroStrategy was back in February 2021. Pretty much when you hit this big giant wick right there, a lot of whales already have smelled that, hey, liquidity is probably going to end up getting pulled. You're probably end up having like a hawkish Fed coming up in just like, maybe in like a year or so. We can probably still stay in Bitcoin and maybe ride up a little bit more, but we're not going to play a leverage play like MicroStrategy to just keep playing it up, right? We're not going to do that. So whales knew something. They exited MicroStrategy, and it never really made a higher high until March 2024, right? So far, MicroStrategy actually is outperforming Bitcoin because we are kind of just stuck here. And if anything, it looks a little bit more like a rectangle rather than like a descending wedge. So it's been outperforming. If you just do the MSTR over Bitcoin ratio chart, there's a way to chart that. You just type in MSTR over BTC USD. It's been forming nothing but higher lows and higher highs really ever since like May of 2022. MicroStrategy is still outperforming Bitcoin really over the last 2 years. So there's no indication that the bull market is over quite just yet. There's not really any indication that whales are scared and that they're wanting to exit a leverage play for Bitcoin like MicroStrategy. So this is actually a pretty positive development for Bitcoin when MicroStrategy is relatively outperforming Bitcoin. If anything, looks a little bit like a nice hammer over here. Looks like one's ready to run, right? Whereas Bitcoin looks like it's just had a pretty brutal correction by itself. Like a very broadening descending wedge over here. MicroStrategy is just going sideways. Like it looks like it wants to just keep pushing up higher. So because of that, that's another reason as to why I think that Bitcoin hasn't topped yet. Now, going back to Bitcoin, going to go to the weekly chart here. If you look at the weekly chart for Bitcoin, you can see that you are getting a little bit closer to the lower Bollinger Band on the weekly. Does that mean that price is going to end up plummeting down a lot further? Not necessarily. It did that here before, around August and September 2023. And this was basically just a consolidating sideways price action before it went up for like 3x. Over here, this is also a bullish formation with the descending broadening wedge. This is also a bullish formation. Can it go on further? Can it go down further? Yes. But it still seemed to be a consolidation sideways, and it still seemed to be a reaccumulation type pattern before it goes up, right? Now, I do want to say that this cycle overall is just a lot slower because the last cycle, it didn't really do that. And the cycle before that, it didn't really do that either. Which is what makes this cycle more unique, because we have it happening once here and we bounce huge. And this could be the second time that this may have happened. And it does look more scary down here than it did up here, right? When things are up here, everybody was like, it's just going to keep going up a lot higher. When things are down here and it's stretching the lower Bollinger Band, looks like it wants to go down further, everybody is scared. And this is actually an area where I am leaning more bullish at because of that rationale. And I also just went through a lot of different reasons as to why I don't think Bitcoin has topped quite just yet. And that includes both global liquidity, both in terms of the lack of euphoric sentiment, which means that I don't think the downtrend is going to be that bad. And also the fact that the technicals are still supporting that this thing wants to go up higher. Now, because of that, I cannot really be that bearish too when it comes to the overall market and when it comes to the overall crypto market as well as stock market, and also these crypto associated assets like MSTR, Coinbase, Robinhood, as well as a bunch of miners. I really cannot be that bearish on it on the longer time frame. Although, that's another topic for another time. I might try to record another video to talk a little bit more about that. But do I think that this is the bottom locally? It would make a really good bottom. It would make a really, really good bottom. The reason why I say that is because, I'm going to try to draw a rectangle here, is because it's trying to find a range, right? Right now, the bottom of this range is around 56,000, 55,000, somewhere around there, 54,000, somewhere around there. I guess the range can go down a little bit further. I would say maybe like that's the range right here. That's the lower part of the range. Upper part of the range is obviously going to be closer up to here, right? Including this wick over here, including the all-time high over here, and it's just been ranging sideways over here, bouncing between this range, right? It came back down a little bit to backtest another range underneath, which is around the 48,000 area. And it just wicked and it said, nope, I'm not going to get stuck in that range. I'm going to just get back to this current range over here and just going to keep ranging sideways. And right now we're at the bottom of the range, right? Now, if it's just ranging sideways and if it's at the bottom of the range, even if I'm a trader, I am not going to get that bearish on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has a way to really trick a lot of people. I think the ultimate thing is looking at global liquidity. It doesn't seem like they're going to stop printing money anytime soon. Looking at the yields, it really doesn't look like yields is done dropping. It really looks like is rolling over. It really looks like the 2 and 10-year yields are just going to keep plummeting over time, right? And if you are rolling over, and if you're potentially changing a trend here for the 2-year yield to go down a lot further, and if US liquidity continues to go up, and if the Chinese liquidity, after these few months, for whatever reason, consolidating sideways, continue to go up, then I have a hard time seeing Bitcoin really not going up. Is ranging? Is it a bottom of the range? That's what I think. I could be wrong. But even if I'm wrong, I just don't think that we're going to get punished that hard because the bull market really hasn't run that hard. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm going to try and make a separate video if I can today. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.